Welcome back to the Public Housing Resident Organizing and Participation Toolkit Training Series. The training series is meant to walk public housing residents through how to organize and run a successful resident council so that you can improve your housing and community. We encourage you to participate in the entire training series.
This training is based off of Guide 3, Holding Effective Resident Council Meetings. As you go through the training, you may want to refer to the guide.
In today's training, you will learn how to prepare for and run effective resident council meetings. Resident council meetings should be engaging and productive so that residents feel their time is well spent and that the organization is making progress. This training will discuss
How to prepare for an effective meeting.
how to facilitate and chair a meeting so that it runs smoothly,
How to facilitate a meeting so that it is engaging for residents.
and finally, we will go over the decision-making process to ensure that you can make group decisions that have buy-in from members and that difficult or controversial decisions are made in a way that engages everyone and avoids conflict down the line.
Effective resident council meetings are critical to having a well-functioning and successful resident council.
Resident council meetings are
The main place where neighbors come together.
and where decisions happen, and often where the resident council work happens,
Meetings,
should be both engaging and productive.
having interactive decision-making promotes ongoing participation in the resident council.
Meetings should happen often enough to keep members engaged, usually monthly.
To ensure progress when there are many active meetings, the board of directors, working groups, or committees can meet between the general meetings. See the sample resident council procedures provided in this toolkit for specific information related to meeting procedures, agendas, and decision-making.
And the sample forms for resident council meetings provide forms and notices related to these procedures, including sample meeting notices you can customize, sign-in sheets, and customizable agendas.
To learn more, take a look at the documents and participate in the training on the sample procedures and forms.
Much of the work for an effective resident council meeting happens before the meeting.
To prepare, you will want to set a convenient location, date, and time for the meeting.
Keep it consistent. For example, always hold the meeting on the first Tuesday of the month at 7 p.m.
However, if residents at your property have varying schedules, you could alternate the meeting time. For example, alternating between daytime and evening meetings.
Talk to the property manager to reserve a space for the meeting. The PHA should provide office space and meeting facilities for free.
Create and implement a plan to turn people out to the meeting.
Set an agenda and let people know what's on it in advance of the meeting.
Here's a tip. As part of the planning process, ensure residents' needs are met and they can fully participate in meetings. This may include ensuring that the space is accessible, that there is interpretation, a space for kids to color, snacks, and transportation.
Even with a consistent meeting time and place, the resident council will need to work to encourage people to come out to each meeting. Be sure to
Provide notice for the meeting. Put up and distribute written notices. You can use the sample forms provided in this toolkit. Make sure you give at least as much notice as is required in the bylaws.
use electronic outreach. Depending on the population in your building, you may be able to use email lists or Facebook to let people know about the meeting. In your meetings and on your sign-in sheets, you can ask people how they prefer to be contacted.
Conduct door-to-door outreach. If the property is not too large, door-to-door outreach is extremely effective. At bigger properties, you may want to have building or floor captains who are responsible for inviting and reminding the people in their area to come. Another option is having a table in the lobby during active times to talk to people.
Make sure to communicate the issues the resident council will take up and why these are important to you as you do outreach.
Board members should call, email, or text people to invite them or remind them to come.
On the day of the meeting, text or door knock if people need a reminder.
Remember, inviting people personally and talking to them about why it's in their interest to attend is the most effective way to get people out.
Create an agenda. Work to create an agenda that meets residents' interests and furthers the work of the organization.
Be sure to include agenda items that meet the needs of the different communities who live at the property. For example, seniors and people with school-age children may not have the same interests. And by including a process for residents to contribute items to the agenda, everyone will know that their resident council represents them and takes their interests seriously.
Think through the agenda items and set time limits for each topic.
Ensure that there is always something new on the agenda. You can do this by inviting a speaker or organization that interests the residents.
Be sure that the same old business does not continually dominate the agenda. If necessary, a committee can be formed to bring resolution to an issue.
Here are a couple tips.
In thinking through the order of agenda items, start with something quick and easy to build a feeling of engagement and effectiveness, but cover important items earlier on in the meeting.
And post the agenda during the meeting so people know what to expect.
Having a well facilitated meeting is critical to ensure that the meeting is effective.
The facilitator, or chair, is usually the president of the resident council or someone they designate. A good facilitator maintains a positive environment, ensures that everyone feels included in the meeting and can participate, even if they are not on the winning side of votes. This person ensures that the meeting stays on track, decisions are made democratically, and that there are clear outcomes.
When it's time for the meeting, you can set up for success. Some strategies that a facilitator or chair can use are to
Post the agenda.
create it in advance and set times for each item,
Set or review ground rules.
provide background information on topics you're discussing in order to include people who are not at previous meetings. You can even give them the minutes from previous meetings. If you don't have time to review information during the meeting, you may want to have one person designated to catch people up or a volunteer to talk to people after the meeting.
Write up notes and outcomes as you go along.
Write up key points, including proposals, brainstorm ideas, and events where people can see them during the meeting. Have a note taker write up decisions and to do items as well.
A couple tips for when you use ground rules. Do use ground rules to create a positive environment.
Do not use ground rules to tell people what they are doing wrong.
During the meeting, one of the facilitator roles is to keep the meeting on track while also being responsive to the members. The facilitators can check in with the group and see how they want to handle diversions.
So, what could you do if a member raises a personal issue, such as their sink leaking?
You could ask to speak with them after the meeting or refer them to someone specific.
So I could say, Ms. A, that sounds like an important issue related to your apartment. Can we talk after the meeting so I can get all the information for the property manager?
What if an agenda item is taking longer than expected?
In that case, check in with the group to see if they're ready to make a decision. If they want to refer the issue to a committee to discuss, or if they want to devote more time to the subject. How would you say it?
Okay, I'd say, we are over time for this agenda item. I'd like to see if we're ready to vote, or if the group would like to continue the discussion and shorten other items on the agenda. Give me a thumbs up if you are ready to vote on the proposal, and a thumbs down if you think we need more discussion time.
Great.
What about if the discussion shifts from the agenda?
Again, check in with the group. See if that's how they want to spend their time.
Okay, so I might say, it looks like we've moved on to a new issue. Let's get a show of hands to see who would like to stay on this issue and who would like to return to the initial issue we were discussing.
Perfect.
Another tool you can use to stay on track is a parking lot. This is a space to write ideas that come up that are not on the agenda.
At the end of the meeting, review the items in your parking lot. You can
Check off items that you discussed already.
address any items you have time for.
Decide to put an item on the agenda for the next meeting,
Refer the issue to a committee.
or offer to speak with the person who raised the issue one-on-one.
It's the chair or facilitator's responsibility to ensure that everyone feels included in the meeting and has an opportunity to participate.
The facilitator can do this by encouraging members to share their ideas and questions throughout the meeting, and by using facilitation techniques to increase engagement. This will ensure the best outcomes and members' continued participation.
In a large group, it can be challenging to get input from everyone. Some people are reluctant to speak in a large group, and hearing from everyone can be time consuming. However, there are techniques you can use to increase engagement from members while being conscious of the time and ending with clear steps and decisions. We'll talk about 4 techniques:
Brainstorming,
go rounds,
pair sharing.
and small groups or breakout rooms.
Brainstorming is a technique that allows everyone to come up with ideas on how to address a problem. During brainstorming, the goal is to list as many ideas as possible. You can have people shout out ideas, write ideas on sticky notes, or chat in small groups and report out their ideas.
Participants are not yet providing feedback on the ideas.
Once there is a good list of ideas, you can
Discuss them,
vote on which are best,
or have a committee explore the options and bring back a proposal to the group.
a go round is another way to hear from everyone. In a go round, you go around the room to quickly get the input of everyone. Online or on the phone, it's best to call on each person by name.
In a large group, you can ask people to just say a word or a phrase. So you might say,
Let's go around the room and have each person say one word or phrase that shows how you feel about the proposal. Remember, just one word or phrase. We'll have time after everyone speaks for a few people to offer more input. My word is concerned.
you can also have people do the go round in small groups and then report back on any ideas or feelings that were shared by a number of people.
A pair share is when you have people talk in pairs for a set period of time. This is an effective activity to allow participants to
Process ideas or challenges,
vent,
reflect,
share.
or complain.
It's often useful at the beginning of the meeting so people can then focus.
In pair sharing, the facilitator should
Give participants a specific question to talk about.
and set a time limit.
Have pairs report back if it's something the group needs to know about. But you can also just have a pair share time without reporting back.
So the directions could sound like,
Talk to the person next to you about one thing the resident council is doing that you want to get involved with.
for a more structured pair share, you might say,
With the person next to you, share what you most liked and least liked about the event last week. You'll have 5 minutes. I'll let you know when half the time is up in case you need to switch who is talking. Afterward, we'll ask each pair to share one positive and one thing that could be better.
depending on your space or online environment, you can divide participants into small groups or even break out into different rooms. The goals of this technique are to
Give participants a chance to have real discussions and reflections. In smaller groups, people may feel more comfortable and it gives more time for participation.
this technique is also effective to allow participants to practice and receive feedback, for example, before testifying at a hearing.
To set up for small groups, you will
Provide the question people are discussing, give them a time limit, and provide paper and marker for notes.
ask groups to report back their points of agreement or best ideas to the large group.
With more than a few small groups, have each just give 1 point initially. After all the groups have reported back, you can ask if any important ideas were missed.
The directions might sound like
We're going to break up into small groups of 4. Each group will go into a different corner of the room. Everyone in the group should talk about what you liked and didn't like from the PHA's proposal. I'll keep time so that everyone gets to speak. Choose someone to report back to the larger group about your group's opinions.
let's do a quick knowledge check. Why are resident council meetings so important?
A. They are the main place where resident council members come together.
B. They are where resident council decisions are made.
C. They keep people engaged.
Or D. All of the above.
We'll pause to allow you to decide on your answer. If you need more time, you can always pause the recording.
The answer is D. All of the above. Resident council meetings are key to an effective resident council, since this is where members come together, make decisions, and are engaged with the work of the organization.
Why use ground rules?
A, to facilitate a positive environment.
B, to be able to kick out people who are being unruly.
C, to ensure everyone follows Robert's Rules of Order in meetings.
D, all of the above.
We'll give you a moment to consider your answer. If you said A, to facilitate a positive environment, you were correct.
Ground rules work best when they are agreements rather than rules. They can be read at the beginnings of meetings and even during a meeting to remind people of the group norms. For example, you could say,
Let's all remember that we've agreed that just one person will talk at a time. Ms. B has the floor right now.
when using small groups or pair sharing during a meeting, what should the facilitator do?
A, give a time limit.
B, ask groups to take a vote.
C, give people a specific question or issue to discuss.
D, answers A and C.
We'll give you a moment to consider your answer. If you said answer D, A, and C, you were correct.
When sending participants into small groups, the facilitator should give clear instructions, which include giving groups a time limit and stating the question they are discussing or giving them a specific issue to discuss. It's also good to ask if anyone has any questions before breaking into groups.
You will not always use the same decision-making process. The goal is to ensure that decisions are made by as much of the group as possible through a clear process so that participants feel respected and heard.
Depending on what decisions the resident council is making, there are different processes you can use. While the facilitator will guide the decision-making process, the resident council as a whole makes the decision.
The sample resident council procedures offer a decision-making process based on Robert's Rules of Order, but there are other decision-making processes that resident councils can use.
Robert's Rules of Order is a way that many groups, like resident councils, community groups, and even companies, make decisions.
Some of the pros of Robert's Rules of Order are that it
Ensures people are clear about the proposal,
supports group decision-making,
may be familiar to some people already.
and can be used together with other models like consensus decision-making.
The main drawback is
That because it is a very rule-based model, some groups can become more focused on the exact steps and wordings required by the process, and lose sight of having an engaging process.
here's a tip. If a resident wants to make a proposal but does not know the exact steps, the facilitator can guide the process.
These are the basic steps in Robert's Rules of Order. Though Robert's rules include other, more complex procedures, this should be all a resident council needs.
First, decision making with Robert's rules starts with a proposal. A participant moves or introduces the suggestion for a decision or action that the group will take. The proposal should be as specific as possible and say who, what, where, when, and why. This proposal is also called a motion.
Step 2. A different participant seconds the motion, meaning they support the proposal. If there is no second, the group moves on to something else because there is no support for the proposal.
Step 3. If there is a second, the proposal is open for discussion. The facilitator makes sure the discussion is productive and inclusive.
If the group is using consensus decision-making, the facilitator can test for agreement. This discussion can end early if there is already overwhelming support.
Step 4. If needed, someone can suggest changes by moving to amend the proposal.
The group can discuss the amended proposal and/or test for agreement.
Step 5. Finally, the facilitator calls for a vote. The vote can be to refer the proposal to a committee if more work is needed, or it can be an up and down vote on the motion. The facilitator should restate the proposal.
Step 6. If the motion passes, the resident council, usually through the board, will need to implement the decision. The facilitator should make sure the group is clear on who needs to do what and by when.
Here's an example of what it might sound like to use Robert's Rules of Order.
Step 1. A proposal.
I move that we bring a proposal to the property manager to change the hours of the laundry room so that it's open until 10 p.m. on weeknights.
Step 2. Second the motion.
I second the motion.
Step 3. Discussion, and the facilitator tests for agreement.
All the discussion so far is in support of the proposal. We may be ready to vote. Let's see hands or thumbs up if you're ready to vote.
Step 4. Amendment.
Actually, I would like to move to amend the proposal. I propose that the resident council supports an extension of laundry room hours until 9 p.m. on weekdays.
The facilitator should ask for discussion on the amendment.
Are there any concerns with this amendment? It looks like there are not, but let's go ahead and see how people feel about the amendment. Let's see a thumbs up if you support, a thumbs down if you don't like it, and a sideways thumb if you don't have a strong opinion.
Step 5. Facilitator calls for a vote, including a vote to refer to committee.
We will now vote on the proposal that the resident council ask the property manager to keep the laundry room open until 9 p.m. on weeknights. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes.
Step 6. Facilitator states the next steps.
I would like to ask that the resident council management committee bring this proposal to the property manager at your meeting next week and report back to the group at our next meeting.
Another model for decision-making is called consensus.
Consensus decision-making is an interactive process of reaching agreement, a consensus, between all members of the group.
Participants do not have to be in complete agreement. You are looking for a solution that everyone is okay with and no one strongly opposes, called a block.
The consensus process often takes longer than majority voting because the proposal is refined until everyone is comfortable with it. The advantage over majority rule is that using consensus can lead to a better proposal that has buy-in from everyone in the group.
The basic process that is outlined through Robert's Rules of Order can be used with consensus decision-making. The difference is that in working to reach a consensus, more time will be spent refining the proposal, exploring people's concerns, looking for different options, and testing to see what people think about the proposal.
Under consensus, when it seems that everyone is in favor of a proposal, it moves forward for a vote.
If anyone is not in favor, the facilitator will ask them to share their concerns.
This may lead to an amendment of the proposal to address concerns or make the proposal better.
If concerns are not strong, the facilitator may say something like,
It sounds like you have some concerns about laundry room noise at night, but you understand this is the only time that some people can do laundry. Are you okay with the amended proposal of a 9 p.m. closing time moving forward?
let's say someone replies, could we make a sign that asks people to limit noise at night and keep the door to the laundry room closed? The facilitator would then state the updated proposal.
Okay, I hear an amendment. The new proposal is that the laundry room closes at 9 p.m. and that there's a sign that reminds people to keep noise down at night and keep the door closed.
Under majority rule, a proposal moves forward once it looks like a majority will be in favor. Under the example we just heard, a majority may have supported the new laundry room hours until 10 p.m., but a smaller number may have been upset about the potential for noise at this time of night. Or, if there was not majority support, the issue may have been closed.
Under either process, an issue can be sent to a committee to come up with ideas or refine a proposal and bring it back to the group.
Keep in mind that a group can use consensus for some decision and use majority voting for other decisions.
No matter which model of decision making you use, you will need some strategies to test for agreement before ending discussion.
Some strategies include
Go around,
Straw poll.
asking for concerns,
Getting more ideas.
getting more frequent feedback,
Dot voting.
rule of thumb.
And asking everyone to share one pro and one con.
We'll discuss some of these strategies.
Use the rule of thumb to quickly see how people feel.
Ask everyone to show a thumbs up if they support the proposal,
A thumb to the side if they are not sure or need more information.
or a thumbs down if they are against it.
Dot voting is a good technique to use when there are lots of ideas that need to be pared down. It can also be used to get out ideas that people may be reluctant to share out loud or to ensure everyone is participating. This process can be used for prioritizing issues.
For dot voting, give people sticky note paper and ask them to write one idea per sheet. These can be stuck on the wall to visually see all of the ideas. Once the ideas are up, people can then mark the ones they agree with by putting a dot next to the ones they agree with. Dots can be made with a marker or a sticker. Limit the number of votes. For example, if there are 20 ideas, give everyone 5 votes.
The facilitator might say to the group,
We're going to pass out sticky paper. Take as many pieces as you need. On each piece, write one speaker or organization that you would like to have come to a resident council meeting. We'll then prioritize them.
once all the ideas are up, give the next set of instructions.
We'll now give everyone 3 dot stickers. Each sticker is a vote. So you can vote for the top 3 people or organizations that you would like to have come. The Community Engagement Committee will then start inviting guests to our meeting in order of the number of votes received.
The next technique is called five-finger voting.
This decision-making technique takes some upfront explaining and reminders, but it can be really fast when a group is used to it. It gives everyone a quick visual as to where people stand on an issue. At an in-person meeting, people quickly hold up their fingers to show how they feel. For an online or phone meeting, they can either show their vote, put the number of fingers in the chat, or say the number.
The facilitator could say,
Let's see how everyone is feeling about this proposal that laundry room hours be extended till 10 p.m. This is not an official vote. I just want to get a quick visual through 5-finger voting. Hold up 5 fingers if you strongly agree with the proposal. 4 if you agree. 3 if you don't have a strong opinion and you'll just go with the group. 2 if you disagree. 1 if you strongly disagree. And a fist to block the decision, only if you think it would go against the resident council mission. Thanks. I see a lot of 3s, 4s, and a couple of 5s, but I also see some 1s and 2s. Let's hear from a few people who disagree.
it looks like it's time to close the meeting. The goal is that when the meeting ends, everyone should be clear on what decisions were made, who will do what, and when they will do it.
Issues that were not resolved may be referred to committees. The large group should delegate to a committee or working group to figure out the specifics and bring a proposal back to the full group. Everyone should be clear as to who is on the committee and when they will report back.
End your meeting with
A clear statement of the next steps.
and a list of action items.
It can also be helpful to give positive shout outs to remind participants what was accomplished.
The facilitator could say,
We got through some tough decisions today. Nice work. I'd like to ask the secretary to read back the decisions and next steps that we agreed on.
or they could say,
We came up with a great list of speakers to invite to our meetings. The Community Engagement Committee will start inviting them to the meetings. Can everyone who's on that committee raise their hand? Great. They have committed to getting a speaker for the next meeting and giving us an update at that meeting on their progress.
before we close this training, let's do another knowledge check. According to Robert's Rules of Order, what should happen once a motion has been made and seconded?
A. Discussion.
B. Amendments.
C. Vote.
D. Test for consensus.
We'll pause for a moment to let you consider your answer. If you said A, you were correct. Once a motion receives a second, Then the group should discuss the proposal.
When would be a good time to use rule of thumb?
A, to see if members generally like a proposal.
B, to see if members are ready to end discussion and take a vote.
C, to elect a board member to fill a vacancy.
Or D, answers A and B.
Again, we'll pause to let you consider your answer. If you said D, which includes answers A and B, you got it. It would make sense to use rule of thumb to see if members generally like a proposal or to check if they're ready to take a vote. However, a vote for a board member should be done more formally.
Let's watch this animated video which shows some of the principles and techniques that we've been talking about in action.
Okay, everyone, let's get started. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. Our resident council is new, so if this is your first meeting, welcome. We'll follow the agenda, which is here on the board, and was also on the flyers. But if you have ideas or questions outside of the agenda, we'll have some time at the end. My name is Brenda, and I'm the president of the resident council. I'll be facilitating this meeting. We'll start with Angela, our secretary, who will go over the minutes from the last meeting.
Hi, everyone. You should have a copy of the minutes from our meeting last month. There was one vote where we agreed to submit a grant request for the community garden.
Thank you, Angela. Any questions? Okay, then we should approve the minutes. Is there a motion?
I move that we accept the minutes as prepared.
I second the motion.
Please raise your hand if you support the motion. Does anyone oppose the motion? The minutes are approved. Thank you, Angela. Next, we will have some new business. Many people will remember that the resident council used to do back-to-school nights. Some members would like to revive the tradition and hold a back-to-school celebration next month. Jose?
Thank you, Brenda. A few of us parents have been talking about how nice it would be to prepare all the students for the school year. Families who are new to the property might not know about all the resources the local schools have, and it is encouraging for students to be celebrated. Some schools and other organizations would provide food and even some items for students. We would just have to reserve space from the housing agency, get the word out, and organize some activities for the kids.
I'd like us to break into small groups to talk about this before we have a vote. Let's do groups of 3. We'll meet back together in 5 minutes.
I'm really excited about this idea. I remember when we used to have the back-to-school nights. My kids loved it.
I like the idea too. I wonder if we can get some fun activities for the kids, like a bouncy house.
The rec center has one. I could go there next week and ask if they would bring it.
That would be great. My kids are grown, but I'd be happy to volunteer.
Oh, that sounds good then. Let's do it.
All right, let's hear any additional ideas from the final small group to report back.
We came up with many of the same ideas. But additionally, Angela volunteered to see if the rec center would bring their bouncy house for the kids.
Wonderful. It looks like there is a lot of support. Jose, do you have a motion you'd like to make?
I move that we authorize an ad hoc committee to plan a back-to-school night for next month. This group can work with the housing agency, invite organizations, and recruit volunteers.
Jose, we need someone to lead the committee. Can we clarify in the motion that would be you?
Yes.
I second the motion.
Is there discussion? Any questions or clarifications about the motion?
I'd just like to authorize the committee to seek out in-kind donations. Also, I volunteer for the committee.
Thank you, Bob. That sounds good.
If there's nothing else, let's put it to a vote. The motion is to authorize an ad hoc committee led by Jose to plan a back-to-school night for next month. The committee will look for in-kind donations to make the event a success. If you support the motion, please raise your hand. Anyone opposed to the motion? Raise your hand now. Excellent. The motion passes. Thank you, everyone. If you're interested in volunteering with the committee, please talk to Jose. We'll also place a sign-up sheet on the table to make sure everyone on the committee can be in touch. We're almost done. We have a fun closing activity today, though. We have quite a few birthdays to celebrate this week. A few members on the board brought some treats to share. If you can hang around, please join us. But first, we have to adjourn our meeting. Is there any other business?
I just want to remind everyone that elections are coming up in a few months, and the elections committee will need help. If you have any questions about the committee, I'm happy to talk during the social time. Also, nominations for the open board positions are due by the last day of the month.
Thanks for the reminder. If you would like to nominate yourself or someone else, there are extra forms on the table.
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
I second the motion. All in favor? Meeting adjourned. Thank you, members.
These resources are related to the Guide 3 training. If you access the guide for this training, you'll find clickable links.
Thank you for participating. This training is part of the Public Housing Resident Organizing and Participation Toolkit. The full toolkit includes topical guides, customizable resident council documents and forms, tools related to tenant participation funds, and case studies of resident organizations around the country.
The next training is on Guide 4, Partnering and Advocacy with the Housing Agency.